Welcome back to Chapter 14. This is Chapter 14, Lesson 2. We're going to talk about pesticides. So Lesson 2 and Lesson 3 are right after each other because they relate really well. So this lesson is just going to be me introducing pesticides, and then Lesson 3 is going to be issues with pesticides. So learning goal here is that you'll be able to describe common pesticides use and the effects of their use. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain why modern agriculture makes extensive use of pesticides, and then also differentiate between persistent pesticides and non-persistent pesticides. So agricultural chemical use, first let's talk about what a pesticide is. So a pesticide is any chemical used to kill or control populations of unwanted fungi, plants, or animals, aka pests. So it's a pesticide is a pest controller. Pesticides can be subdivided into several categories based on the type of organism that they control. And a lot of these you probably are familiar with. So insecticides control insect populations. Fungicides control fungal pests. Rodenticides control mice and rats, aka rodents. Herbicides control plant pests, so herb being for plants. And then biocides kill a large variety of organisms. Biocides are dangerous to most living things. So this is an example of pesticides being sprayed on crops. So just in this bucket here and is sprayed all over. So pests are often referred to as target organisms when we are talking about pesticide use. So there is a target organism that we are trying to target with that pesticide, which is why we kind of will focus on the different kinds of pesticides depending on the type of pest we are trying to control. Many pesticides also kill non-target organisms as an unwanted side effect. If it's a pesticide, it is dangerous, it is toxic, it is meant to kill things. So it's going to be harmful to a wide variety of things. So we have target and non-target organisms, and then we have persistent pesticides and non-persistent pesticides. So persistent pesticides remain active for a long time. They are very persistent. They're going to stay there for a while. Non-persistent pesticides break down really quickly. So you spray them on, they kill the thing, and then they're gone, in theory. Like they break down into less harmful components. So herbicides, remember, are for controlling unwanted plants, and they're heavily used in genetically modified crops. We're going to talk about GMOs and the good, the bad, the ugly that comes with them in Lesson 4. But herbicides are used tons on GMOs because those GMOs are modified to survive the herbicides. So about 60% of pesticide use in the U.S. are herbicides. So 60% of pesticides use is just to kill plants specifically. So weeds compete with crops for soil nutrients. That's why we don't want the weeds there. So it's not just like, it's ugly and it's annoying and whatever. It's a plant growing out of the same soil as our crops. So that plant is going to be taking nutrients out of the soil, which means it's taking nutrients theoretically from the crops we're trying to grow. Traditional weed control methods are expensive in terms of time and energy. So if you're just out there pulling weeds, that's going to take a lot of time, take a lot of energy, and time is money. So insecticides, again, are for insect populations. 3,000 years ago, a while ago, Homer noted the use of sulfur to control insects way back when. So it's been known for centuries that certain plant products produce repellent chemicals. Examples are nicotine, aka tobacco, rotenone in tropical legumes, and then pyrethrum in chrysanthemums. So the discovery of chemicals that could kill insects was celebrated as a major advance in the control of disease and protection of crops. A lot of insects eat plants. So a lot of insects are trying to eat the plants that we are growing, which means, again, we're competing with an insect. When it comes between an insect getting food and us getting food, we're going to prioritize ourselves. So the other piece is insects not only try to eat our food, but also some of them carry diseases. So mosquitoes specifically are known to carry over 30 diseases harmful to humans. And the first time we saw a synthetic inorganic insecticide was way back in 1867. And then in 1942, DDT became the first synthetic organic insecticide produced. And it was seen as this really incredible thing that turned really dangerous and now is outlawed. So several new categories of these compounds have also since been deployed. So this is an example of pesticides being spread over a forest. So one other type of pesticide or specific type is chlorinated hydrocarbons. I know we're bringing it back to chemistry. But chlorinated hydrocarbons are a group of complex, stable structure, long-lasting, persistent pesticides. So these are persistent pesticides. They stay around for a long time after it's sprayed. And they remain effective for long periods after application. They tend to accumulate in soil and animal bodies. So again, remember, there are target pests and there are non-target pests. So if we're trying to kill one specific thing, but this pesticide is accumulating in soil and in animal bodies, we're going to affect our non-target organisms as well. So because of how long-lasting and persistent they are no longer used in many parts of the world because there are some health concerns that come along with it. They are still used in many developing countries to protect crops and public health. So because of their persistence and continued use in many parts of the world, they remain present in the food chain. Another is organophosphates and carbamates. I promise I will not ask you to spell these things. But organophosphates and carbamates are short-lived pesticides that do not persist in the environment. So they break down really quickly. And they both work by interfering with the ability of the nervous system to conduct impulses normally. These pesticides affect the nerves of cells of humans and other vertebrates as well. So it's dangerous. People who apply such pesticides must have special equipment and should receive special training in safe application practices. So again, we have good reasons for using pesticides in theory. We're protecting our food, we're protecting human health, but there's also risk that comes along with this use because pesticides can be dangerous. There's several major types of herbicides currently in use. There's some that are synthetic plant growth regulators that mimic natural growth regulators like auxin. So it basically messes up the hormones of plants to interfere with their growth. There's also photosynthetic disruptors. If plants can't photosynthesize, they can't live. That's how they eat. That's how they create the sugar that they can then eat. And then there's also enzyme inhibitors, so messing up like the chemical reactions and proteins that are going on in their body or in their self. There's some herbicides that are toxic to all plants, so they're non-selective. They'll kill anything. And there's some that are selective to the plant species that they affect. So atrazine is often used to control broadleaf and grassy weeds, so pretty broad. Glyphosate, aka Roundup, if you go into any like Home Depot or Lowe's, Roundup is one of the main herbicides that you'll see. Roundup is a broad-spectrum, non-selective, systematic herbicide used to control annual and perennial plants. So most plants, Roundup will affect them. There are GMOs created specifically to be resistant to Roundup so that they can spray it all they want. Fungicides are used to protect agricultural crops from spoiling because fungus breaks down things, and so that makes spoilage go faster. And also to prevent the spread of disease and to protect seeds from rotting in the ground before they can germinate. Methylmercury is extremely toxic to humans. Moving on to rodenticides, in some parts of the world, governments pay a bounty to people who kill rats because they can destroy agricultural crops. And they also carry diseases harmful to humans. Rodenticides must be used with great care to prevent poisoning non-target organisms. If you poison a rodent and then that rodent is eaten by an eagle, an owl, whatever, that high-tier predator then is getting that poison within them, and that is a concern. All right, so before you move on, can you maybe answer these questions? 1, can you describe why pesticides are commonly used in mechanized agriculture, and how do persistent and non-persistent pesticides differ? If you cannot answer these questions, you should probably rewatch, make sure you're listening, and you can also come talk to me. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you in the next one.